I've started to clean up the seam lines. I've just started, I did the wings and the nose for the moment. I won't clean this one up until I put the that spine section in. Wrong way. Until I get that in, so I keep that flush. I don't want to. You don't want to sand and then have a big step. Pretty good. There's a couple of areas I've had to fill in some gaps. Academy plastic is really hard, on par with like Hasegawa. So it's the harder plastic. I find for a filler, your CA glue goes okay. Obviously, it's still harder than the plastic, but when you're sanding it back, you're not going to damage the hard plastic as much as if it were the soft plastic for, say, like Airfix. That's really soft, and if you use CA as a filler, you need to be really careful that you don't damage too much of the plastic around where you're filling. You can also mix, some people mix a bit of talcum powder into the CA glue just to reduces the hardness a little bit, I guess. I've tried it, but I don't. It's a bit messy. Normally I would just use that, but that you need to let it dry overnight. CA glue, as soon as it's almost immediate as soon as it dries. I'm just trying to save a bit of time, that's all. I just want to get the bulk of the aircraft together, the fuselage and that together, so I can start priming and getting ready for paint. Alright, still plodding along, cleaning up seam lines. Just about done. Just need to polish up a few areas and put in some rivet details. I've been rescribing panel lines. Underside I'm done with. I also had to do, I forgot I hadn't done the engine, bottom of the engine nacelle, so I've cleaned them up as well. As you can see, I've got the gun and turret in. Unfortunately, this turret, how it goes together between the spine, when I clipped it in, it's that tight I can't turn it now, and I'm not going to force it and break it, or force it that much that I pop it apart and the bottom goes back into the fuselage. So it's facing that way and I'm happy with that. Rescribing, I've just been using this automotive pinstriping tape. It's not as thick as Dymo tape, which is good for also for rescribing, but it's flexible. You can curve it, you can stretch it over like a spine, and if you need to curve it, you can curve it. You just need to be careful when you run your scribing tool along it that it doesn't jump. You just be careful and you'll be right. You can also, like doing the curves, you can put it on, I put it on the cutting mat there and just cut. You can cut narrower strips so you can curve it even more. So when I'm finished cleaning this up, I'm going to put the main canopy on. I've finished sanding so there's no dust. I just need to mask it because it's been dipped in Pledge floor polish. That's days ago I did that, so it's nice and dry. I just need to mask it. I'm going to double check again the fit, and as mentioned, I'm going to have to wrap rubber band around it to pull it down because it sits up on that V point there, and then I'll probably glue in the there's 3, it's a antenna, different tile antenna. They're going to go one under the chin and 2 on the back. They're probably better putting on at the end, but I want to check how they fit into the slots, because they might be a nice clean fit, so they might need to go now and tidy up that way. Okay, so I've masked up the canopy with the mask set. I just put hand brush some black paint around the frame, just to make sure when this is glued in you can't see any grey styrene. You probably wouldn't, but just absolutely making sure. Sometimes I just like to use extra thin on canopies, but this one, it's really close to the tape and you're risking the extra thin bleeding up into the tape and messing up your canopy. So I'm going to be using crystal clear. How best way to handle a canopy: make yourself a handle with some tape, so you can hold it, especially when you're using crystal clear, and then you run your glue around it and you're not trying to fumble holding an awkward shaped canopy. Same as I do the same for jets as well, the big bubble canopies, and that just helps to grip it. I'm not going to show you how to do it because this is going to be a bit of wrestling happening here. I think when I put this in, I'm going to need to wrap rubber bands around to make sure, firstly, that it sits flush at the rear, because I sat it in before and if it's not quite level with the edges, but when you give it a bit of pressure it flattens out, and then you got that gap at the front, so I'm going to need rubber band at the rear holding it down, and then I'm going to need rubber band at the front holding it down to get rid of that gap. After that, if there's still a bit of a gap, then I'll just use some putty, but it's too much of a gap at the moment for putty. For myself anyway, I don't want that much putty there, because when you put putty, if you're looking from the sides, you'll see the white. So unless you mix colour in with your putty, some black, you'll see the putty standing out. Okay, so it's on. That gap is looking good at the moment. So I've got the rubber band at the rear and it's flattened it out like I mentioned. That's pulling the front down, but I've had to, because of the windscreens like that, that rubber band just wants to roll off, so I've just whacked a heap of Tamiya tape on there just to keep it up there to hold it down. That's going to need to dry overnight. You need probably 24 hours, maybe quicker if it's hot environment, but give it plenty of time because it's just a white glue, so it's not as strong as your extra thins and whatnot. So give it plenty of time to go off and hold its position. So I'm going to leave that well overnight. I'll be tomorrow I'll be working back on the F16C anyway, so this one can have a couple of days for that glue to go off. I'm not putting these antenna on yet until I remove the rubber band. I don't want to bump and break things, which I am inclined to do.